Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm Terry, your host. Actually, I'm unloaded. So I put the I put my phone on the Qualcomm. I guess the Qualcomm is good for something, because the sun was coming in. It was like doing weird. Well, it was rays of sun. It wasn't horrible, but it was just making the camera look weird. So today is March 3rd. By the way, I got a message about this. We are going to daylight savings time on Sunday. So yeah, we're already back. We're already back to summer. So today's March 3rd, like I said. I'll do some history because I haven't done this in a while, and I kind of like doing it. On this day in 1847 in Edinburgh, Scotland, Alexander Graham Bell was born. He's the guy that invented the telephone and made improvements to the phonograph. But a while ago, I did a video on visiting the James A. Garfield Presidential Historic Site, where his home was, and I think that's considered Mentor, Ohio. And I talked about the fact that Graham Bell really worked like super hard trying to perfect the X-ray machine to try to save President Garfield's life, because President Garfield was shot, but then he lingered for weeks and weeks, and they thought he was getting better, and he didn't, but they couldn't find the bullet that was in his body. That was one of the big issues, and so Bell was a friend of his, or an acquaintance certainly, and was trying to invent something, right at the spur of the moment to try to save the president's life. So yeah, 1847, Alexander Graham Bell was born. On this day in 1962, Jackie Joyner Kersee was born, famous track and field star, Olympian. She's 63 today, so happy birthday to her. On this day in 1931, so not really that long ago, the Star-Spangled Banner was first officially adopted as the national anthem. So, it was written many, many years before that, like during the War of 1812 by Francis Scott Key, but it wasn't adopted until 1931. Time magazine started publishing on this date in 1923. So Time magazine, older than the national anthem, at least as the national anthem. On this day in 1985, probably just a cool TV show, Moonlighting, premiered, and starred Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. And it was the first introduction kind of to Bruce Willis, I think. And he was really good. And I was like, that dude's cool. He's got a receding hairline and he's cool. And it was a great show. If you weren't around, and I used to watch it like it was like must see TV. I would make a point to watch it. So that was 1985. On this day in 1991, the LAPD treated Rodney like a king and beat the crap out of him, and it was videotaped. It might be one of the most famous police beating videotapes, but it certainly wasn't the last. I don't know that it was the first either, but it seems like it was the first one that really had an enormous impact. And the court cases were crazy. There were federal and state court cases led to the Rodney King riots. And unfortunately, Rodney King actually lost his life in, I think he drowned in a pool. He did get a settlement from the LAPD. That's police departments, cities mostly, jurisdictions like to claim nothing was done nothing was done incorrectly, but they'll immediately like cough up like millions of dollars to settle with people that have been victimized by the police. And I will say that my father-in-law was on the LAPD when that happened. Yeah, so it was just It was just an interesting time. So that's some history for today. So I wanted to share this episode with you because I know this happens to other people. So a while back when I was at GP Transco, I had a 401k, and the custodian was John Hancock Financial Services. And I participated in the 401k at GP Transco because GP Transco had a decent match. It vested immediately. Like their match was, they matched 4% of the first 5% that you put in. So if you put in 5% of your salary, they basically gave you an 80% bump to that. And I apologize, my nose feels like it's going to start running, so I'm just going to do that. And so I participated in it, and then when I left GP Transco, I was like, oh, well, I got a fair amount of money. Even though I wasn't there very long, it added up quickly, and it was several $1,000s. So after I left GP Transco, like I went to Prime, I called John Hancock and I was like, hey, I'd like to convert this to an IRA. Can I do that? And they're like, well, no, because you don't have $10,000. And I thought it was really stupid at the time that they wouldn't let me just roll that into an IRA, and because I didn't have $10,000. I mean, I was going to continue investing with them. And because I was happy with the funds. They weren't killing it, but they were doing fine. And I thought by going to the IRA, I would also get more fund choices. So I just thought it was so dumb that they wouldn't let me do that I just basically cashed it out. I was already 59 and a half, which is the minimum age you can be to take money out of a qualified plan without incurring that 10% penalty for early withdrawal. Excuse me. So I just got the check and I think I spent it, right? I think I used it for something. Whatever, it's fine. I saved my money for a while, got a match from my company, and blew it. I don't even know what I spent it on. I might have given it to my wife and said, here, you pay the bills, you decide what to do with it. So anyway, fast forward to recently, I left Well Companies back in September, and Well, I did not want to participate in their 401k because it was crap. It was a 2% match, which really only, if there's a plan that's, if there's a plan in place, a 401k plan in place at a company, and they're making the participants pay the administrative costs, after they give you that 2%, which by the way is mandated. So there are provisions under ERISA, which is the act that controls retirement accounts and at employers. And there are rules in ERISA that say you have to do certain things as the employer if you're going to offer one of these plans. And one of the provisions in there is called a safe harbor, where you can just say, oh, we'll put in this much. And then if you do that, it is deemed to be sufficient for you to meet the requirements. And if for some reason you weren't actually meeting the requirements, you would be excluded from any kind of penalty or enforcement action because it was under the safe harbor provisions. So that 2%, and there was also a vesting schedule for the employer contribution of 2%, which is also bull crap. There wasn't, like, for instance, there wasn't at GP Transco. When they put the 4% in, I got the 4%. It was now my money. But so I didn't want to participate. But another sketchy thing that Well did and other companies do is it was an opt-out 401k. And what they would do is the reason they would have an opt out where like they automatically start taking money out of your pay and contributing their little 2% is because the more money that's in the plan, the more money there is to pay the fees. And if you don't make employees, and typically low wage earners, people that are just starting in a company, don't want to participate. But if you force them to participate or basically make them take the initiative for you to not take their money, what you're doing is you're spreading that cost of the plan out over a bigger pool of people. So all these people that have a lot of money in the plan are high wage earners putting in more money. They're not paying as big of a share for the plan that they see as an advantage. And they're taking advantage of the worker who really didn't want to put any money into it and just forgot to opt out. And that was me. I forgot. And they said it in orientation. But, that's one of those things where they kind of just gloss over it and they're like, oh yeah, here's all that. They like, if they want you to know something, they tell you like 87 times and give you like a quiz and 2 final exams on it. But if it's something they really they want to tell you, but they don't really want to like accentuate it, they just they're like, yeah, there's a bunch of information in your pack. You might want to read it. And, most of us, and I'm the lawyer in the room, but I don't read everything. I mean, I just don't. Because when you're at orientation, what are you thinking? You're like, man, I just want to get out of here and go back to the hotel. And then I just want to get the hell out of this town and get a load and make some money. Right? That's what we're all thinking. And the other thing you're thinking in the morning is, I wonder what kind of crap lunch they're going to get for us today. But some days is not a great lunch. But so fast forward to just recently, I get a statement from John Hancock says, "Oh, you have $295 in this." But now they apparently learned from me being mad at them about the first time where they wouldn't roll it to an IRA. They have this what they call a transitional IRA. So they move you out of their 401k plan into a transitional IRA. So I call them and I'm like, hey, can I get information about this? Because they sent me a statement and I couldn't get information. I call somebody, they're on the Indian subcontinent, and they're like, oh, we can't get account numbers. I'm like, wait, you sent me a statement. So then I get a 1099 for a distribution from the 401k to the IRA, and there's an account number. So I already have accounts at Fidelity, and I like Fidelity because they're easy to work with. They have a lot of options. They don't have high fees. And I'm not out here shilling for Fidelity. I'm just saying that's been my experience, that I've always dealt with people who candidly, when they pick up the phone, it's not somebody lying about their name, and that's what's crazy to me about like these call centers in like India and stuff, is they'll be like, hello, this is Chad Smith. Can I get your name, please? I'm like, dude, just if your name is not Chad Smith, just tell me what your name is. It's not like I don't know a ton of Indian people that live in the United States. They don't fake their name. They don't go, yeah, my name's Jack Jones. No, they just tell you what their name is, right? So I don't, and at this point, at this point in like development of the United States, most people would be like, I'm not going to be surprised if this dude's name is Sunil. It's not going to freak me out, right? I've heard that name before. And so it's just bizarre that they do that. But I digress. So anyway, I can't get the information, but it does say there is an account number on this 1099. So I call Fidelity. I'm like, hey, I just want to roll this over into the IRA that I already have at Fidelity. And why? Because it's easy to work with Fidelity. Even like I was able to change the funds at John Hancock, but their website, their mobile app, they're terrible. and like they're like you couldn't get into them a lot of times. Fidelity is very, very user friendly, at least in my opinion. So luckily, so I do this transfer request, and then there's some issue, and I get a gal that reaches out to me, and I'll say her name because she's a rock star in my opinion. Her name is Taylor Schilling, and she's super competent, and didn't like drop the ball. Like she was like, oh, we're trying to do this. Can you have other documents? I scanned and sent documents to her, and she's like, okay. And then she sent me another message. She's like, hey, they're still not letting us do this. They're saying the what we sent them is not good enough, the account numbers and stuff. So I was like, okay. So she set up a conference call for today. And I stopped on the side of 81 at a rest area and did my half hour. And she set the conference call up, sent me a calendar reminder, did all that. And she got on the phone with these people with me on the line. And we finally, it was still painful though, because they still wouldn't just do an asset transfer. They're like, oh, we got to send a check. And she's like, well, could we give you a different, because she was like, could you just send it to Fidelity? I'm like, yeah, send it to them. And they're like, well, the whole account holder would have to change their address, even though they eventually agreed to make the check out to Fidelity. Because if I take a check, then it is a distribution, and that would be a taxable event. I mean, I'm still going to get another 1099 because it's moving, but it's moving from a qualified account to a qualified account. There's no tax liability for me. So I can eventually, but I'm going to have to, but because they're so dumb at John Hancock, I got to wait till they mail a check, then I got, it's got to show up at my house. Then I got to get the check. And because Fidelity has a decent app, I can take a picture of the check and probably do it electronically. If not though, Taylor's already sent me the address to send the check to him, so I wouldn't cash the check. I just send it in. But yeah, I hear it's so funny because I hear people talking about, oh, we should do away with Social Security and let people get their own money and put it in the markets and stuff. And as a guy who has had a bunch of securities licenses, I was actually talking to a friend from Prime recently. And I was telling them how, all these tricks, all these legal things that financial services companies do to, charge you fees and make money. And, the other thing too is about that. I mean, when it comes to Social Security, so many people suck at investing. They suck at investing. They're way too emotional about it, and they do really stupid things with investments. I know a lot of people that are always trying to chase the latest and greatest. They're trying to make some killing on Bitcoin or Nvidia stock or whatever. And it's like, by the time you or I, as a as a retail investor, right, find out about something, all the bigwigs, all the institutional investors, the pension plans, the hedge fund managers, they've all already taken advantage of it, and they're moving on to the next thing. That's why pump and dump schemes work, because somebody will pump up a stock like a penny stock, a stock that's on the pink sheets, and people will start putting money in it. But by the time people are finding out about it and saying, oh, this stock is up 100% over the past month, I'm going to get in that, the people that pumped it up are already dumping their stock. And while it is true that that's illegal, it's only illegal if they get caught. And I worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission. I knew people. I didn't work in enforcement division. I worked in corporation finance, but corporate finance division. But the odds of getting caught are not high. It has to come to somebody's attention, and a lot of times it doesn't. And so So and even like people that watch like Jim Cramer and stuff, by the time Jim Cramer talks about something, all the big investors have already made a move on that, and they're already looking to go, what's their next move. So anyway, if you have an experience with John Hancock, I'd be shocked if it's not like mine. It really is. And even today, when Taylor called, she called the people the back office people, and they're like, "Oh, well, you got to talk to this other person." And sending all these documents did no good. It was just kind of crazy. But the other thing I will say is like when I talked to the person and said what I wanted to do, I couldn't get the answers that we were able to get today. So it's just really unfortunate. And people are, I said to her, I said, I'm curious if this is like a business management tool to just make it so hard, so painful to get stuff done that people just like for $300, a lot of people would just give up on that. And, that's not fair, but that's how it is, right? It's like you deal with these people and you can't get any satisfaction. You can't get what you need. And so a lot of times people just give up. And I get it. Like during the call, I was just kind of thinking, man, is all the, like, she worked really hard just to help me move $300. I mean, it's not like I'm a big account holder at Fidelity right now, but she was willing to hang in there. And so I appreciate that she was willing to do that, even though we're moving $300. But anyway, by the way, people have asked me about different things, like about taxes, Social Security, investments. And, and I was mentioning earlier, I was talking to a friend, and this person was telling me that they have an IRA and what they were invested in. And when they said what they were invested in, I was like, man, that is like the worst thing. And I explained why. And it's not because of what they picked per se. It's the whole, well, I guess it is. It's the whole structure of it. And these are targeted mutual funds, right? Or targeted date mutual funds. And I came across something, and I'm going to do a whole different video about it, but you're going to want to watch that because a lot of people, it's like, it seems like the easiest thing to do and the smartest thing to do. And often it's not. And I can tell you that these targeted funds just really enrich the investment companies, the financial services companies. And I'll explain why. And I'll even, it's so funny because one time I just said something about investments and somebody asked a question and I said, look, I don't really know your situation, so I really couldn't opine on what's best for you but somebody, even before I replied to that comment, they're like, this guy's just another dude on YouTube. You shouldn't get investment advice from YouTube, which I agree with, by the way. But I was like, look, I will explain a product. And, and so when I do that, I'll talk about all the licenses I've had in the securities industry. But just a quick, I've had a Series 6, Series 7, a Series 24, which is a general securities principal. I've had a 62, a 63, and a 66. I've had all those licenses. So I've had, like stockbroker, I could sell mutual funds, I could sell REITs, I had investment advisory, I could do all of that at different times. And also I was a general securities principal because I was a compliance officer at a hedge fund. And so I'll talk about some of these products and what the pitfalls are and what the benefits are. And I'm feeling really a sense of urgency about this because it's feeling a lot like 2007 right now. Just the mortgage stuff. I'm looking at CMBS stuff. I'm looking at, a lot of structured finance things that are just like, it's like it's the good old days, which turned into the not so good old days. And I don't even know that it has much to do with politics. It does have something to do with interest rates, but I feel like we're really, it just doesn't feel right. I'm not super invested right now. Everything I got is kind of, everything's very conservative or cash. So, but that's just Terry's world. It doesn't mean it should be yours. But anyway, I'll come back and I'll talk about that stuff. It's kind of a crazy week because I'm driving for 2 days. I did just a 34. I'm driving for 2 days. Then it's my son's birthday, but he always works weekends, so we're having a dinner on Wednesday. Then I'm going to go back out probably part of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then be home like Sunday and Monday. So it might be a few days before I get to some of these other topics, but I promise I will. So anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.